Your fingers are covering again. Still.
Are we good?
Down in front.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay. Despite all the challenges we face as a collective, the growing threat of global warming could be could define the outcome of this century more dramatically than any other. Whether we agree on the semantics of the issue or not, our planet is warming up, and that is a fact. I grew up in Cuba, a beautiful Caribbean island. I vividly remember as a child the memory of a hurricane category 4 or 5 heading in our direction as a rare event, something that we would prepare for, but it wasn't that often that we had to deal with. I always remember houses without roofs, the walls around me shaking during the storm, and a palm tree that was stabbed by a large piece of metal after the storm. Sadly, for the past 10 to 20 years, these events have only increased in frequency and destructive power. And that is part of what I want to talk to you about today. There are 3 issues that I have researched and consider to be a global immediate threat. One is sea level. More powerful than ever storms, and last but not least important, the economic loss inflicted upon the average Joe. Since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s, just to give you an idea, sea level has swelled over 8 inches. Scientists project that within the next 100 years we could be dealing with anywhere from 4 to 36 inches in sea level. By now you're probably thinking, well, that doesn't really sound like a lot, and besides, I live in Montana, so it really doesn't affect me, does it? But nothing could be further from the truth. Just to put it into perspective, 36 inches of sea level will flood most of the East Coast, anywhere from Miami all the way to New England. In 2010, during the last census, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration counted 123 million people living in the counties directly on shorelines. Furthermore, it was forecasted that by 2020, that number would increase by at least an 8%. So should the worst forecast come to life, we'll be dealing with a chaotic influx of people moving away from the shoreline, an event most inland states, counties, and cities will be ill-equipped to deal with, even with anticipation. Moreover, when sea levels rise just as rapidly as they have been, even a small increase can contaminate aquifers, agricultural soil, and destroy of habitat for many birds, plants, and fish. Another issue is that due to the increase in ocean temperatures, storms will continue to become more powerful and more dangerous. The burning of fossil fuels, as many of us know, and CO2 emissions are the main drivers behind these conditions. In 2017, for example, we had an unfortunate taste of what is to come. The best example for that is Hurricane Maria and Irma. The above average ocean temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean helped the tropical storm Maria to become a hurricane in less than 24 hours and a Category 5 with sustained winds of 175 miles per hour in less than 48 hours, something that had never happened before since we have been keeping records since the late 1800s. So as I mentioned earlier, growing up in Cuba makes you quite familiar with these weather events, but these are beyond any previous experience. Caribbean climate scientist Dr. Michael Taylor highlights the fact that there is no point, and I quote, in the historical records dating back to the 1800s that 2 Category 5 storms, Irma and Maria, made landfall in the Caribbean islands in a single year. So you can get a grasp of the situation and how fast changing everything is going. So such was the destructive power that for the first time in 300 years, the small island of Bermuda had no human inhabitants for 18 months. Therefore, for those who have to deal with the direct consequences of global warming, there is really no debate. Instead, there is a sense of urgency to limit global warming and keep the temperature from rising beyond that 1.5 Celsius. And while sea level rise and stronger storms are important topics about climate change, the future economic damage that is to come has the potential to bankrupt the global economy. And if you think mainly about your wallet and how to sustain your family, maybe this is a topic that might get your attention and get you to act. A few years back, the DARA Group, a non-government organization based in Europe, wrote a report forecasting a global loss of GDP up to 3.2%. Major economies like the US will actually be heavily affected, and could lose up to 2% of the GDP by 2030. But it's not just all predictions and forecasts, right? So you just gotta look out there. There is plenty of evidence that shows climate change has affected businesses and economics at home and around the world. For example, Hurricane Katrina alone, it cost the US $125 billion in damages. So more recently, Superstorm Sandy in New York had a $19 billion cost. Hurricane Maria and Irma cost worth up to $90 and $50 billion together, or individually, I should say. Another example, the tourism industry, is also at the mercy of our inability to act. And many of us have heard by now in the news, the Great Barrier Reef in Australia is dying at an unprecedented rate, due in part to the rising ocean temperatures. So, as we have discussed today, global warming affects us all. There's no denying that, from rising seas, stronger storms, and economic loss. It cannot be ignored. All the evidence we need is all around us, you guys. The truth is staring right on our faces. It is watching us squabble in a cesspool of nonsense and self-harm. When the facts in front of you are that much evident, it is difficult to remain a cynic. And believe me, I'm a cynic. It is up to all of us as a collective to come together and tackle the difficulties of our reality, once and for all. If not for us, at least for those who will come thereafter. Our previous Commander-in-Chief said it best during a speech to the UN. No nation can solve this challenge alone, not even one as powerful as ours. Climate change is one of the defining moments of our time. So let's get up and let's make an effort to make a change. Cut it.